Welcome to Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors, where we believe Benjamin Franklin's advice that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest, both in finances and in your life. Every episode teaches you personal finance and long-term investing in simple terms. Now, here's your host, Jesse Kramer.
Welcome to Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors, episode 123. My name's Jesse Kramer. By day, I work at a fiduciary wealth management firm helping clients nationwide. You can learn more at bestinterest.blog/work. The link is in the show notes. By night, I write the Best Interest blog. I host this podcast. I put out a weekly email newsletter too, and all those projects help busy professionals and retirees avoid mistakes and grow their wealth by simplifying their investing, their taxes, and their retirement planning. It seems like many Americans feel time poor, even when objective free time may exist. It's the something I should be doing effect. And in financial planning, we often focus on saving money, investing money, the money in retirement, taxes. But time itself, of course, is a resource and one that is increasingly perceived as scarce. So how do we align our financial plan with our time plan, if you will? Well, today's episode is going to focus on time, and Andy Hill is going to help us think about time later on. First, we'll do a quick review of the week, and I'll do a very brief reading for you. The review of the week is from Fartsky. Yes, Fartsky. Fartsky left a review on Spotify saying, "This podcast is the best. Jesse provides his honest, educated, and clear perspective on all things finance related. You can tell Jesse is not only crazy smart, but also passionate about personal finance and loves to educate his listeners. Most importantly, he has integrity and he's not shilling for anything or anyone. Whether you're a beginner trying to figure out what a 401k is, or an advanced person trying to tackle complicated IRMA rules and Roth conversions, this is the podcast for you." Well, Fartsky, great work on the screen name, and thank you for those very kind words. I'd be happy to send you a super soft podcast t-shirt, so please drop me an email to jesse@bestinterest.blog so I can get that sent out to you. And again, before Andy Hill joins us today, I want to share some thoughts from a 2023 article I wrote called Get Your Time Back. Going back to 1790, the U.S. Census counted about 4 million Americans. 90% of those 4 million Americans lived on farms. Granted, not all of them worked the farm, but you get the gist. Agriculture was huge. Food was so hard to produce that only 10% of the population could afford to not be involved in agriculture. Now today, only 1.3% of the American workforce participates in farming. I'll share a chart with you in this article, and I recommend you look at it, but it's an amazing looking chart. And essentially what it shows is that farming productivity and farming total output have increased incredibly over, in this case, it's a 70-year timeline. So farming has increased incredibly over the past 70 years, despite the inputs of labor and land use dropping precipitously. So less people hours, less labor, and less land is being used for farming, and yet farming production goes up and up and up and up. Of course, that change has been hugely beneficial for both American and global society. Norman Borlaug, if you don't know Dr. Norman Borlaug, it's worth checking him out. He's credited with saving 1 billion lives, billion with a B, 1 billion lives through his work in agricultural productivity. And one of the takeaways from that data set and takeaways combining, the work of Norman Borlaug is the fact that specialization, efficiency, innovation, and productivity move society forward. Because other people were dragging the plows at the time, Norman Borlaug didn't have to, right? He could go into the lab, he could specialize in the sciences, and he changed the world because of it. Barely any of us drag plows today, and we're able to help out humanity in other specific, productive, and innovative ways. And that's both true on the macro level, like feeding an entire nation or feeding an entire globe, but it's also true on the micro level. And when I wrote this article, in that month, my wife and I, we had spent $1,200 to hire a 3-man painting team to paint the walls and paint the ceilings in our living room. It's a really tall room. It's probably got, a 16-foot ceiling, a 20-foot ceiling. So they spent a lot of their time up on ladders, reaching high with rollers, doing, all those little corners. And for those of you wondering at home, the answer is shoji white. That's the color we went with. Now, $1,200 for this specified trade. Spending $1,200, nothing to scoff at, right? It's real money. But if we break it down, $200 was probably for the materials. We would have spent that anyway if we did the painting ourselves. The remaining $1,000 was paid for maybe 22 hours of expert painting labor. I'll say it was 20. So it was $50 an hour, right? 20 hours, $1,000, $50 an hour for their labor. But I don't think we should measure their time as much as we should measure our time, like my time, my wife's time. I mean, how much time and hassle did we save by hiring these experts? They could paint with way more skill and efficiency than I can. It took them 20 hours of ladders and rollers. It would have taken me, 50 hours and I would have fallen off and, dislocated my shoulder. Is $1,000 worth saving 40 hours of hassle? In my book, the answer is a pretty easy yes. And I don't think we're alone in that opinion. Better tools, better machines, and more skilled labor have vastly reduced the amount of time Americans spend on chores. So going back to 1965, this is when this first data is from, 1965, the average American couple spent 35 hours a week on housework. Overwhelmingly, it was mothers over fathers. Again, this table just looks at mothers and fathers. I realize that other people can be involved. Fast forward to, say, 1985, about 30 hours a week. So dropping from 35 to about 30 hours. And in 1985, about 20 hours a week from mothers, 10 hours a week from fathers. Fast forward to today, the answer is about 27 hours a week. Still more mothers than fathers, but still from 35 hours a week down to, 27, 28 hours a week right now. Washing machines, blenders, lawnmowers, you name it. We're surrounded by tools, and in some cases, we're surrounded by skilled workers who can save us time. And it's worth considering, how much is your time worth? As Reuben Miller once wrote, buy your frickin' time back. What do you hate doing that you can pay someone else to do? Time is an ethereal concept, and so thinking this way can feel unnatural. But most of the physical crap we buy doesn't make us any happier. Whereas at least I know how to enjoy myself if I had more time. As you have more and more money, buying your time gets relatively cheaper and cheaper. We're all gonna die, probably before we want to. And for a lot of us, we will die with plenty of money in the bank. And our regret will be not enough time with people we love, not enough time for places to see, not enough time to do the things we wanted to do. Unfortunately, there are very few ways to get more of it. So go freaking buy it. So you don't have to hire out everything in your life, nor should you give up the reins completely. You can go ahead and stay in the loop. But if you don't like a chore, and if you're not good at that chore, or if you're extremely slow at that chore, well, what are you doing? You might want to hire that out to a professional. For thousands of years, we all had to be farmers because that's the only way we could eat. But that's not the case anymore. Again, tip of the hat to Norman Borlaug for that. So buy your frickin' time back. Spend it honing your specialization so people hire you to do the stuff that you're great at. Or better yet, spend some time doing the things that you love. Personally, I never want to fall off a ladder with a paint roller in my hand, thinking to myself, is Ghost champagne really a different shade of white than eggshell cream? We need to get our time back. Here's a quick ad, and then we'll get back to the show. Serious question. Why do podcasters constantly ask for ratings and reviews? Yes, they do help highlight our shows to new listeners. They help strangers find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's totally true and a good reason to ask for ratings and reviews. But I have something more important, at least more important to me. I want to know if you like this stuff. I want to know if you like my podcast episodes, my monologues, my guests, the information I share with you and the stories I tell. I want to improve and make your listening more enjoyable in the process. So yeah, I would love to read your reviews. And sure, if you throw a rating in there too, that's great. If you like what I'm doing, please share it with me. It's such a great feeling to read your feedback. I'd love to read your review or see a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thank you. And with that, let's kick things over to Andy Hill. Andy is the award-winning blogger and podcaster behind Marriage, Kids, and Money, which is dedicated to helping young families build wealth and thrive. Today, you'll hear us talking about Andy's latest project, a book coming out in early 2026 called Own Your Time, 10 Financial Steps to Put Your Family First and Escape the Corporate Grind. So when it comes to getting your time back, fixing that feeling of feeling time poor, or aligning your financial plan with your time plan, Andy is a really good resource for that, and I'm excited to hear what he has to tell us today. Andy, one thing I love about personal finance and financial planning is that there are all these nooks and crannies, ripe for amazing conversation. And sometimes me and you and the listeners out there, we might get burnt out on tax planning. Oh, but then we go read up on investing allocation. We get burnt out on frugalism, but we go read about Medicare. And it's been a while since I got a chance to dive deep on the topic of time. Time, the ultimate limited resource. And I know you're working on a really cool project all about time. So I thought we'd start the conversation with chapter 1, so to speak. How do we begin the journey to truly owning our time?
Oh, what a great question. Yes, I love talking about time because, as you said, it is finite, and we only get 168 hours in the week, right? We can't create more time. We can create more money, but we can't create more time. So to support that conversation, I think it really comes back to what do you want to do with that time? So I think when I start these conversations, a lot of our discussions, Jesse, can be around money, can be around finance, because we know what that can do for our future. But I really want to encourage people, and I have to encourage myself sometimes, to really think back about why we're building this wealth, why we're accumulating this net worth number or eliminating the debt, all those cool, things that really excite me. But why are we doing it? And so when we really think back and we look deeply, we have to ask ourselves those questions. What are my goals? How do I want to change my future? How do I see things differently for myself 5 years from now? And really building up the reason for owning more of that time. What do I want to be doing here? What do I want to be doing with my life? What am I not doing now that I want to be doing in the future? Or what am I spending too much of my time doing now that I don't want to be doing in the future? Those are really great questions to ask yourself as you start this journey of time ownership, time freedom.
Are there any specific exercises you recommend that help us define that life we want to live, that allow us to, in your own words, I think, is, carving out some time to dream? What specifically does that look like?
I think it's just how it sounds too. And I think sometimes people have difficulty with that because when we were kids, we dreamed a lot. We dreamed of being rock stars or sports athletes or whatever, really cool things, because those people dared to go dream and do something really cool. And then we got older and we got our corporate gigs and we were pretty busy and we forgot to dream. It's like our dreaming muscle atrophied from a life in the corporate world, or all the general demands of life as we get older. So I think it's incumbent on us to take that time to literally carve it out of our schedules to say, what am I going to do for 15 minutes, 30 minutes to just block everything out and dream a little bit? What do I want to do for my future? Where do I want to go? And sometimes that's difficult for people to physically sit down and write it down and then develop goals. People maybe don't have that ability. What I like to do is do some fun exercises to say, okay, if you went to your mailbox right now, Jesse, and you got a check for $5 million in there, don't worry about the taxes, don't worry about any of that stuff. Like, you get it free and clear, and it's in your bank account. What would you stop doing immediately? That's more of like a subtraction goal, as opposed to like, where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? Think about what you'd stop doing. And if your first reaction is, well, I would quit my soul-sucking job because it is not fulfilling at all, and I would say goodbye and thanks and peace out. Okay, that is informative. But maybe after you took a breath, you'd say, okay, well, actually, I like what I do. I just wouldn't want to do it so much. I do it 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week. I like what I do. Maybe if I could do that like 20 hours a week, that'd be good. That way I could spend a lot more time with my family. I could spend more time, taking care of my health. My health goals have kind of gone away. These other big priorities in our life have been pushed aside. So if you can't think of it in a dream standpoint of just sitting down and coming up with those big goals, maybe think about it from a subtraction point. What would I want to take away? Or if that doesn't work, think about your fears. Think about the things that you're constantly worried about that are on your mind all of the time. What are those constant fears? And how could increasing your wealth and growing your wealth help you to eliminate some of those fears? So I think that's a great place to start. And really, that does take some time to carve out in your schedule to say, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write this down, and really think about it and have some fun with it.
Yeah. I really like the subtraction question, as you put it. It reminds me of, it's a Charlie Munger type thing of like invert, always invert. You don't have to think about the amazing things you do with $5 million. Like, think about the first biggest thing you'd take out of your life. And that's a perfectly fine way of solving the problem. Or I think it's George Kinder, right? Not George Kinder, but George Kinder, who's got these 3 life planning questions. And a couple of his questions, if I'm getting them loosely right, one of them is, if you got a diagnosis that you had, 5 to 10 years to live, thankfully you're not going to be in any pain. You just don't know between 5 and 10 years when it's coming. What would you change today? A second question he has that's similar is that I think he calls it the mortality question, which is like, if you knew you were going to die, you have 24 hours left to live. Immediately, what comes to mind as these kind of like regrets or things you wish you would have done more of or things you wish you would have done less of? Yeah. And it's just these, stimulating conversations to help us think about of planning the life itself. But, I'm thinking as we start thinking of these answers to those questions, you devote a lot of time in the book to something called the Coast Fire idea, like the Coast Fire framework, I'll call it. And I'm sure some audience members probably know exactly what I'm talking about when I say Coast Fire. But do you mind starting with just a quick definition of what that term means, but then tell us maybe more specifically why Coast Fire is such an important milestone for time ownership?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to define Coast Fire, I would first recommend defining fire to help people. And I know that you guys probably talk about that at the show quite a bit because it can be a goal for some people out there. But it essentially is born from this movement of people who were frustrated with this corporate grind, really having that thought in their brains saying, I don't think humans are meant to be clacking away on their computers inside cubicle offices for the majority of their life, and we got to break free from this madness. So their idea was, hey, save and invest a huge chunk, maybe 50% or more of my income for 15 years, and then I'm out of this rat race, and then I can go do whatever I want. I think that's a very inspiring movement, and it has been a very inspiring movement. The problem with that movement is that it's usually really great for high-income earners, and it's very difficult if you have another spouse on board and some other kids and some other people that you need to care about that also need to go along with you on this journey. It can be a little bit more difficult. So what was born out of the fire movement was also this Coast Fire movement. This essentially says, yeah, you know what? I don't think we're supposed to be in this corporate world for 40 years. What about 15 years? That sounds great. But could we just slow that down a little bit, maybe save 30%, and then instead of ceasing work altogether in 15 years, what about just going part-time? Just saying, hey, I don't like what I'm doing full-time, but maybe I could do it part-time, or maybe I could start my own little part-time business or something like that. Because research has shown, as you've probably heard, Jesse, having some sort of purpose or the ability to give back in some meaningful work is good for you long-term. So I even see myself doing some sort of part-time work, even in retirement. I think there's research that backs that up, that it's great for retirees to have purpose and meaning and joy in their life. So Coast Fire is sort of a middle way when you compare the traditional retirement plan of, hey, I'm going to work for 40 years, maybe save 15%, and then I'll really be able to enjoy myself when I'm 65. And then the opposite of let me grind away for 15 years, saving the majority of what I'm earning, and it's going to be really tough for those 15 years, but at least I'll have some freedom on the other end. Coast Fire is that middle way.
And we've had enough conversations, Andy, and I know enough about your content. I mean, would you define your family right now in some sort of Coast Fiery state or something? You're somewhere in that region, aren't you?
Absolutely. I would wear that hat gladly. It would be a nice hat, and happy to wear that. Yeah, about 3 years ago, both my wife and I took this adventure, this philosophy of Coast Fire, and said, hey, let's really lean into this. We had invested about $500,000 for our retirement. This is, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, HSAs, things like that. And by doing the projections, we could see in about 20 years from now, with a very conservative real rate of return, 6-7%, that we would have about $2 million at 60 without any further contributions to our retirement plans. And that gave us pause, and we said, well, if we don't need to keep contributing to this thing and we still get to our retirement zone that we need to be in, could we just work less? And so that was something we decided to do. Both my wife and I have gone to part-time work as of about 3 years ago. She works part-time as an esthetician. She went back to school to learn a new trade because she was sick of corporate marketing and wanted to try something new. So she learned that skill, and she's doing that part-time. She works Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And now I am a family finance coach and a financial educator online, and I try to smush my week into Tuesday through Thursday. I do bleed in a little bit on Monday. I'm probably like a 3.5 day kind of work guy right now. Fridays, I try to religiously always try to take Friday off just because it feels good. But long term, I'd love to have a 3-day work week and a 4-day weekend. I just feel like that just feels right. We look at that typical week and we've got 7 days. I don't know who decided that 5 days need to be working and 2 days need to be relaxing. Let's flip the script here if we can with our money. And so my wife and I are experimenting with that right now.
It's the next question I have down on my ideation sheet over here was, you kind of start with this Coast Fire idea. You start with this idea that maybe we can start to take our foot off the pedal, literally start to coast that vehicle for a while. And along with that comes this idea of, well, do I still need to keep working full time or not? And I give you credit, Andy. That 3-day work week has such an appealing label to it, right? Instead of five on, 2 off, I could do 3 on and 4 off. So again, what does that look like for someone? I'm thinking of this mid-career professional right now who first, maybe they need to do some math to understand if they've reached Coast Fire themselves. And I don't know, are there any like go-to, you've got the 4% rule, that kind of thing. Are there any go-to rules when it comes to Coast Fire? Let's start with that one.
Yeah, I would say the numbers evolve over time based on what $500,000 means in 2025 versus 2020, So you really need to keep fluid with that. There's some great free calculators online that help you to calculate your Coast Fire situation. We've developed one on our website that's helpful for folks. But essentially the numbers that you need to know are how much do I spend today for my comfortable life? I don't say my depriving life or my abundant life too. It's somewhere in the middle of like, yeah, I've got all of my needs and most of my wants. I got most of them. I don't have everything, but I have a comfortable life. So having that number of your annual expenses is very important. And I think that adventure right there is a big one for a lot of people. Most people know how much they make. Not many people know how much they spend, but that number of how much you spend is much more important than how much you earn. So that exercise right there of just learning how much you spend each year to make a comfortable life can be a gold mine for your future retirement needs. So having that information and then also having how much have I actually saved or invested for my retirement in the future. Again, people might just be hitting the auto contribute button on their 401k, which is fantastic, but it's good to know that number to see where you are and gauge how close you are to hitting this milestone, because that realization that you've done the work can be very gratifying to say, wow, do I care more about having $3, $4, $5, $6 million in retirement when I'm 60, 70 years old? Or do I care more about working less in my 30s, 40s, and 50s so that I can own more of my time, take care of my health, spend more time with my family, God willing, have some more hobbies, spend time with aging parents, all these other identities that are very important in people's lives besides worker. If we could lean into those other identities, I think we can find a lot more joy in our lives, a lot more meaning, a lot more purpose. Community leader, volunteer, athlete, singer, what do you like to do? Like lean into those things. I think that is where joy can be really found. And obviously spending time with people that you love. I got to interview Robert Waldinger, who is the director of the Harvard Adult Study of Development, is the 85-year study of essentially what makes people happy. And he shared that the 2 results of that. Obviously, the first result is eat healthy and exercise. That's the one we all know, right? But the second one, which was surprising to him, was people who lived the longest, happiest lives were people who had the best relationships, people who spent time with people who lifted them up, that kept them happy, and they did the same to them. So leaning into those types of relationships in your 40s, 30s, 50s is much more important in my eyes than having $4 million, $5 million, $6 million in the investment account when you're 60 or 70, because unfortunately, the average mortality age in America is 78. 75 for fellas, Jesse, which is no fun.
No, it's fun. I mean, listeners might have heard me say this before, Andy, and you might be familiar with this research too, but this is, I think, something that Fritz Gilbert over at Retirement Manifesto did, where there's some cool stats about the biggest concerns of pre-retirees versus the biggest concerns of post-retirees. And the pre-retirees are always, I shouldn't say this, but in general, pre-retirees are most concerned about finances.
Yep.
But then in general, right, post-retirees say, oh, I didn't realize how socially isolating retirement would be. If, assume they didn't go into a retirement with a socialization plan, with a plan for pursuing their hobbies or passions. And they say things like, retirement's lonelier than I thought. Retirement's more boring than I thought. The money's fine, but yeah, just, it's the lifestyle that's not there. And I think that's a really important fate that we want to avoid. Here's a quick ad, and then we'll get back to the show. I send a free weekly email to thousands of readers that shares 2 simple things, just 2. The first are my new articles and podcasts, so you'll never miss when I publish new content. And the second is my favorite financial content from other corners of the internet, so you can see what's been helping me the most.
But Jesse, I don't want another email.
I hear you. I make this newsletter short, sweet, and full of essential information, and readers enjoy that. About 85% of newsletter subscribers are engaging with the newsletter more than once a month. They're enjoying it, and you will too. You can subscribe for free on the homepage at bestinterest.blog, and you'll get a free PDF of my white paper titled The Step-by-Step Guide to Building Your Retirement Paycheck. That's right, a free weekly email that thousands of people like you are already reading, a free white paper to help you plan for retirement, and you can sign up for free at bestinterest.blog. But anyway, going back to Coast Fire a little bit and that 3-day work week. That's the thing I wanted to ask you about was that 3-day work week. I mean, any tips for someone who is, maybe they're the 5-day corporate grinder, they're that 60-hour a week person who you mentioned before. Maybe they even love the work that they're doing, but they've gone to your Coast Fi calculator, they've realized they're there, they feel it in their heart that they want to start slowing down. I mean, any like kind of practical tips and tricks for coasting down into that 3-day work week lifestyle? What does that look like?
Yeah, first of all, congratulations for investing so much that you did that, because that is the hardest part of doing all this. The fun part, which also, as you mentioned, could be scary because we're not used to it, is something that we should take in baby steps, right? It should be really step down to it. For you to say, hey, I'm investing 30% or 50% into my retirement and I'm going to go to zero immediately would probably do a jolt to your system. So maybe the first step is, instead of stopping contributions altogether to your retirement, maybe you're doing a 401k and you're doing a Roth IRA, maybe just starting to pare back those contributions on a monthly basis, but take that money and say, can I put this now in an FU money fund, maybe some sort of savings account, where I will allow myself to have a bridge out of this 60-hour work situation, maybe into a 20 or 30-hour work situation. Maybe that's your own consultancy doing what you do best. Maybe that's working at your current employer and just saying, hey, do you guys have part-time opportunities here? Do I have a relationship with my manager where I can have that type of conversation? If you don't have that type of relationship with your manager, don't have that type of conversation. Maybe that there's opportunities out there at other companies looking for part-time work, or you've always wanted to start that solopreneur business where you are the boss and you make the decisions. I think when we have money in the bank, like a 6-month or 12-month runway of cash to support you and your family, you gain that confidence and autonomy to say, I'm going to give this a go. And that's really what my wife and I did after we hit Coast Fire, after we paid off our mortgage. We saved up 12 months of expenses in a savings account and said, I'm going to try this whole family finance coach podcast thing that I've been doing and see how it goes. And so we launched in January of 2020 with my wife's pat on the back, say, you got this, man. And I launched into it. The first 2 months, man, they were fantastic. I had contracts, I was growing my business, and then March 2020, something happened. I think you guys know what happened. And it became really scary. Contracts went away. The idea that I had taken this plunge and put my family along with me became very scary, and I became very depressed, and I had some tears, and I needed some moments with my family and my friends to really say, hey, man, you've got this. It was low, but what I did have was 12 months of money in the bank for me to be guided through this process over the next year, 2 years. And if I didn't have that, I would have ran back to my corporate job saying, I am so sorry. Please take me back. I made a mistake. But really, that 12 months of runway gave me the confidence to say, hey, man, dip into me. It's okay. Utilize this money. That's why you did it, so that you can live a better life in the future. And if I can go through every 100-year global pandemic for my small business, I believe that people can do it as well. It helps when you've got some FU money set aside.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And boy, there's one of my go-to phrases is that for some people, money buys happiness. For some people, it doesn't buy happiness. But for almost all people, money buys flexibility. And maybe that just means, that ability at some point in life to say, you know what, I'm going to change jobs for a lower paying job because I love it more and I have enough money to give me the flexibility to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a lot of these cases, it's that flexibility to maybe retire a little earlier than someone wanted to, take a chance on yourself. I mean, that's such a cool one. Like you said earlier, that we all look up to rock stars and athletes, and maybe it's because they were able to take a chance on themselves and pursue their dreams. And what a cool story to be able to say, I had the financial flexibility to take a chance on myself, pursue my dreams, go into business, and even survive a pandemic in the meantime. It's such a cool story. And here you are pursuing these dreams, but with kids. And that's a question. So going back to the whole, whether it's the owning your time, the Coast Fire itself, the 3 on, 4 off work weeks, how do kids fit into this picture? I guess logistically, how do they fit into this picture? And then also in terms of instilling them with the right set of their own kind of time, money values as they're watching you as role models. So I guess first, let's start with the logistics of just pursuing these pursuits with children in your life.
Yeah, I would say that my wife and I stepping down to part-time work has been incredible for both our relationship together as well as our relationship with our kids, because the thing that kids crave more than anything in their life is time with their parents. Well, I guess that's different when you get teenage daughters, because she doesn't want to see me anymore. But for a big period of time, they really crave being around their mom and dad. So we've been able to give that gift to them over the last 5 years for me now, 3 years for my wife. And it's been so great, man. I've always wanted to be that present father that's there for the games, that's there to pick them up at the end of the day. I'm taking my son to his cross-country meet right after we're done with this conversation. It's, 30 minutes away. It's at 3 o'clock. It's like, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was grinding away at my corporate job or traveling. And it just gives me so much joy that I can see him lean into a sport that he loves. So I think for our relationship with our kids, it has been fantastic. As far as helping them see this path as something to consider for the future, man, that's been a lot of conversations between my wife and I. We've had to question a lot of the decisions that we've made over the past 20, 30 years of our lives and saying, is this the right path for our kids? But what I still do believe is that instilling in our kids that if they want something out of life, working hard for it is worth it. We still do that. We have our kids contribute around the house here to support with what it means to be a part of this family that's doing chores. When they want to make some extra money, they can work with dad in their small business, and I can pay them for that. That allows me to contribute to their Roth IRA because they have earned income through my small business as employees. This is 2 hours, 2, 3, 4 hours a month. It's not a lot, but you know what? If they've been doing it for 3 to 5 years, that Roth IRA starts to grow. Right now, my kids both have over $8,000 in their Roth IRAs. My daughter's 11. My daughter's 13 and my son is 11. You can only imagine where this would go over time towards that goal of time ownership. My net worth at age 28 was negative $50,000, and my son at age 11 is over $10,000 now. Again, you can only imagine what this type of early contribution towards investment goals, savings goals, even conversations around giving can do for their long-term wealth and happiness.
That is awesome. And yes, I've talked before about the child as employee Roth trick here on the podcast. It sounds like you were going about it exactly the right way. And listeners, you might remember me saying that if your child sweeps your warehouse floor for an hour and you pay them $7,000 to max out their Roth IRA, the IRS will not appreciate that.
They'll come get you. Absolutely. Yeah.
Make sure
these are $20 an hour. They're podcast co-hosts, things like that. My daughter will edit my social media videos, things like that. And it's not a sweatshop, everybody. It's like a couple, 4 hours a month, like when they want to. And as soon as they're like, hey, Dad, I don't want to work with you anymore. Like my daughter, she's like, I don't want to be podcast host anymore, Dad, because I'm embarrassed. It's not like, no, you got to do it. It's like, no, she's gone on and doing her own thing. She's reffing soccer games. So
awesome.
It's just, do it when we can.
Uncle Sam approves, Andy. Uncle Sam approves. Well, maybe one of the last things I wanted to ask you is, I kind of even alluded to it before, that some of the most, I'm not sure what the word is, distressing or heartbreaking or concerning stories I hear involve retirees who, for lack of a better term, essentially like waste away after their working years, just become some sort of shell of the person they used to be. And I know you devote some time in this whole topic of owning your time. I think you call it use your 4 days wisely, referring to those 4 days off. I mean, what can people do to really ensure that they not only don't waste away, but really that they thrive in their time off, whether it's in Coast Fire or in full retirement? What can people do better?
I think the issue that I've heard from older retirees or even talking with doctors who've spoken to patients on their deathbed, is that they just leaned into that one identity of hard worker too much. And so when that hard work went away, they had no identity anymore. So in this use your 4 days wisely mantra, this is our opportunity to diversify our identity outside of worker. We can be dad, we can be mom, we can be brother, we can be sister, we can be runner. There's all these different hats that we can wear that can give us pride outside of, hey, I'm a hardworking guy and I've been there for a long time. Because when that identity goes away, you will have an identity crisis. You will say, who am I? What's my purpose? So I think it's incumbent on us to diversify our identities as much as possible, as early as possible, just like investing. This is the same thing. If we invest in one single stock for a really long time and that single stock tanks, what are we going to be? We're going to be depressed, right? So I would say that it has a very good similarity to investing. I think we should do that as early as possible. And if we're looking for areas to invest in, our health is a great one, because the more we lean into our health, the more we can be better spouses. The more we're better spouses, the more our kids will see that and learn the true value of family happiness. So it's got a cascading effect. We take care of ourselves, we can be better spouses. We take care of our relationship with our spouse, we can be better parents. And then from there, we're better friends, we're better children to our own aging parents, and life goes on from there. So I think there's so many things to explore. I'm in this area of my life where I'm jumping into it and exploring even more. I've definitely diversified my identities, but there's a lot more that I can do, and I'm excited about it.
So it sounds like, there's some compound returns, you could say, from diversifying your identity.
Absolutely.
And we've kind of buried the lead here. In case listeners weren't aware, we just went through some of the really cool chapters of this new book project you're working on. So maybe here in the last couple of minutes, tell us about this book. It might not come out, like this episode's coming out in November. The book's probably not out yet, but I do believe people can pre-order it. And just tell us more about the book itself and where people can find it.
Yeah, it's called Own Your Time. It is the 10 financial steps to put family first and escape the corporate grind. So this is a family conversation. It's a book for people who feel maybe a little trapped in their work situation, and they're looking for those steps to make their way out from, I guess, an area of feeling trapped and more to an area of feeling some peace and harmony in your life. And there are, as Jesse knows, some financial steps that can help you to get there so you can have that choice, so you can have that autonomy in your life and eventually have that time freedom where you can choose to, if you want, work 3 days and enjoy 4. So yeah, it's called Own Your Time. You can get it on any major website right now, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Porchlight Books. Again, Own Your Time by Andy Hill. Yes, it's on pre-order right now, and it comes out in January. I have a goal of hitting 500 pre-orders by January 21st. So if there's anybody out there looking to support that goal, I'd appreciate it.
Amazing. Looking forward to reading it myself, Andy. Andy Hill, author of Own Your Time, the man behind Marriage, Kids, and Money. Thanks for stopping by Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors. If you have a question for Jesse to answer on a future episode, send him an email over at his blog, The Best Interest. His email address is jesse@bestinterest.blog. Again, that's jesse@bestinterest.blog. Did you enjoy the show? Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you listen. This helps others find the show and invest in knowledge themselves. And we really appreciate it. We'll catch you on the next episode of Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors. Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors is a personal podcast meant for education and entertainment. It should not be taken as financial advice, and it's not prescriptive of your financial situation.